Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. Please hit subscribe, hit the notifications bell, go down and leave a comment. We always check the comments, and additionally go to our website at www.legendofsuperstitionmountains.com. Lots of stuff over there, links to everything else, so enjoy yourselves. Become more knowledgeable about the Superstition Mountains. Still upcoming, but no set date for when it'll premiere. History's Greatest Mysteries with Lawrence Fishburne. Moi will be making an appearance there. So just kind of, I will give the updates of when it's coming up, but check your local listings. It comes on Monday nights, I believe. And I hope I did a good job. We'll see. I'll review myself. Additionally, when you see it, no, I did not cut my hair. I got a trim, but they pinned my hair back for the episode because of the green screen and stuff. So it does look kind of odd. I haven't seen any of the takes from it, but I do have some pictures, and I posted some of them, and it was about kind of an odd feel of like, they even at one point said, hey, let's maybe lose the hat. And I'm thinking, okay, is anybody going to know who I am at this point? You changed the whole way how I look. Okay, that being said and done, this week, let's jump into it. I had one I wanted to do. I had a couple different things, and I went through them, and as I researched them, I was kind of like, I think what I'm going to do is wait and kind of do those a little more thoroughly later. But here's one that we will be revisiting probably sometime this fall or this winter, but I wanted to kind of get out in front of it a little and talk about it. So we're going to talk about what is known today as Geronimo's Cave. Now I'm going to show the reference material up front. There are a number of online places. I know the hike is a little different the way they have the cairn set up today, but two of the best resources that you can get off of this trail. This is the one that's available now out there, Superstition Wilderness Trails West by Jack Carlson and Elizabeth Stewart. Excellent book, gives you all the history and stuff. This deals with just the Western superstitions. There is a West and East volume. Obviously the East deals with the eastern side of the mountains, but excellent books. But you also can occasionally still find the original that instead of east to west, it's all put in there together. It's a superstition, hiker's guide to the superstition wilderness. Excellent books. They do have what's known as the cave trail or Geronimo's cave trail in there. In there, they actually do it the reverse. I think I did that once or twice in my life. Going up through Peralta Canyon up to Fremont Saddle. If you go to your right, go east when you're up at Fremont Saddle, there used to be a sign, I don't know if there is a sign, but there's cairns, and instead of going to the overlook, you break off and you start heading southeast, and that will actually take you onto the cave trail and to Geronimo's Cave. History, as far as I know, is Geronimo never spent a night there. He could have, we don't know. But Greg Davis had interesting commentary on it, saying that when his uncle Art Weber was there the first times in the 30s, you could still see a bit of the walls that had encompassed a front. So it was probably a little bit, not as extensive, but a bit more like the Rogers Canyon ruins. And then no one seemed to have gotten pictures of it early on or any of those. I've looked and looked through boxes of old pictures and treks that went up there. But I've never found a picture that showed any of the retaining walls and stuff. But perfectly plausible, and I'm going to take Greg's word, because why would his uncle say, well, when we first went up there, there was the remains a little bit of the walls there. It seems very likely that that probably did have something like that. Beautiful view there. Most of the time I went up, and this is probably the first trip I made up there, was probably maybe 74, 75 would be the first trip. We always went up through what's called Cardiac. Greg refers to it, and others refer to it as Heart Attack. But you take the Peralta Trail, you go off to the right, and you take there's a zigzag crisscross trail that goes up the mountain. And I don't know if they have it marked today. The Forestry Service, I don't think, has ever recognized the trail. but there was a break off, and they used to have a log, a dead cactus and stuff blocking the way to keep people from going that route. That was the route we always took. There might be another way. One of the things I additionally want to do this fall is I want to get Greg Davis and see if I find anyone else. I don't know if Greg ever led the long trek for the Dons, but I want to find someone to take us through and go through all the spots the Dons did. There's the chimney and the fortress. There's a bunch of different things that they went to on the way, and they went up Devil's Slide. I don't think the trail goes necessarily the same route that we all did back in the day, which was generally the same trail as the Trek Trail. I think everybody I went with was following what the Dons laid out. Now we have to remember Peralta Road, Peralta Trailhead, Peralta Canyon, Geronimo's Cave, the Cave Trail, all that's established by the Dons of Arizona back in the 1930s. So all this and everything about it. Now the Dons would meet in the long trek. People would grab everything. They'd have a box lunch, I think, at Fremont Saddle up there by the overlook. So you had to go up to the Geronimo's Cave, follow it out to Fremont Saddle, and then they had a box lunch, and then they came down Peralta Trail afterwards. Probably took 5 or 6 hours back then. We have some pictures of people out on the trail. I know I got one, and I couldn't find it, where they're going up the boulders. The Dons used to run big, heavy ropes down Devil's Slide so people could hold onto the ropes, and then they would have Dons stationed along it to assist people going up. When I went up it, I never had any ropes. I never had anybody to assist me, and we went with full packs. The very first trip I made to Geronimo's Cave, like I said, it might have been around 75. And we went up full packs, went up. Later, I went up with other people, and there was a few people that really struggled, and I grabbed their pack and drug their pack up Devil's Slide with me. When it was raining or moist or wet out, that was much more treacherous, but it's still a steep climb, and it's a tough one. You're going up straight up almost, and there's not a lot of relief going up there. But that first trip, I remember going through the chimney, everything else, we were guided. And I want to go through and kind of film and give everybody the experience on the trail. Because it's kind of infamous, and, well, not infamous, but it's famous. But the long trek, I mean, was established, and for over 70 years, people worked up and went down that trail. It's become pretty, and I don't think it's as popular because they rerouted it. Now, we went up, and just to throw a few names, I'm pretty sure, because there had to be the first trips and the trips I made. There was always a group of people. And I know one of the first ones we went up and we stayed at the cave. That was where we stayed for the night. And I know Ken McNee was there and Jeff Hemeseth. And I'm pretty sure that Michael Lang, Chris Bisecker, I know Bob Shamelka was there. And I'm pretty sure possibly Russ Ragsdale, Steve Palmquist. I know Dave Barry was there. Trying to remember names of people that were there. One of the reasons this came up was my friend Ken McNee, who was with us on that trip, passed away this last March. And I wanted to kind of put that in. I talked to someone and we were talking. I was like, one of my early trips in the mountains, I was out there with Ken when we were kids. Now, we grew up in the neighborhood together. Since probably I was 5, I met him. And he had a little bit of a big brother figure to me. He was a year or two older. I think it might have just been a year. And he looked out for me a lot. We spent a lot of time as kids, and then off and on as we grew up, we might not be around each other as much, and then we'd reconnect and spend time. But we grew up just the block around the corner from each other. And I remember going up there, but I do distinctly remember that was one of my first trips and staying the night up there, and Ken was up there. And yeah, you hate to see, more and more people just seem to go. And I know that's just part of life. That's the organic process of life. But it's a bit sad. We hadn't reconnected in probably 20 some odd years. I'd always kind of wondered what had happened with him. And then I got the very sad news. So we went up. I remember going up Devil's Slide full packs. And we got in there. And I think I've referenced this. Once we got up, we got into the opening. And there's a little shelf. If you've been there, you'll recognize this if you ever go. There's a little shelf to your right, when you're looking in the cave. It's not very big. It's got a little bit of a pitch angle. It's not very smooth. And it's a little bit of a jump to get up in there. Well, few people took the first ledges and found a place to lay. Some people were laying at the bottom. And then I remember Ken and Jeff and a few of them took those little alcoves. just going north from the cave, and they were kind of setting up in there. And I decided this ledge was my spot. Ridiculous. And anytime I've been there as I got older, I tried to think, what the hell was I thinking? It's on a pitch, it's very low. If I fell off, I could crack my head and fall. Fortunately, I'm pretty sure that Dave Barry set up down below me. And so if I would have fallen, I would have fallen and landed on Dave, so it would have been okay. I probably would have survived. But somehow I slept through the night there. Now, today, I mean, you put a thumb-sized rock on the ground below me, I can't sleep. If you look at that ledge, if you're familiar with it and look at it, how the heck I not only stayed on the ledge, but I was able to sleep without any pad. I just threw a sleeping bag up there and slept. So it shows you how, when you're younger, how rugged you can be. Now, we explored all through that area, and to me, it's always important for that kind of a little bit of the history. The history is obviously attached to the Dons and whatever the Dons put to it. I never made the long trek. I never made the short trek. I never had a ticket. I got to see trek, or I got to see the fire fall from a distance. I got to see a little closer up. I snuck in, did not pay. But being a Don now, I think I've paid a little extra and done a few extra things, so I've probably made up for sneaking in. But I never got to kind of witness the full blown. So we've put out videos of kind of some of that. And I know they had established guides for that group, and then they had people stationed along the way. It's just amazing to look at today, people that take those hikes and the water and the gear they have. And then you just have people in just regular clothes just walking along. Sometimes it's not carrying any water at all. And then additionally, you have the Dons in their Dons outfits with the sombreros. And you're thinking there could have been nothing more uncomfortable than those outfits, because they are uncomfortable. But all that, and then on top of it, the giant sombrero, and they're black, and they're out there in the sun. It doesn't matter that it's February, March. It's still warm. And they did these hikes. Now, they had the box lunch, like I said, at Fremont. And Trevor's been there. I took Trevor up. We've been up there a few times, and I took him to the Overlook. And when you're at the Overlook, always go to the southeast. Instead of going to the Overlook, just due north to look at Weaver's Needle, go to the southeast, and then kind of, there's some great views of Needle Canyon, Bluff Springs Mountain, and stuff out there. And I took Trevor out there probably when he was 6 or 7, I think he was pretty young still. He complained most of the way, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we done? And we were going to do the cave trail, and then I just decided not, because he was pretty much bushed in. And I thought he's just going to have just enough energy probably to come in out of the Peralta Trail. The last time we went, it got pretty warm out. I thought about doing the cave trail, which isn't that much longer than going out the Peralta Trail to some degree, because you go out and it's a lot easier going out it than it is in it, because you're going down Cardiac instead of up Cardiac. Cardiac is named because I always look at it as in 3 stages. Is the first stage is you're like, wow, I'm not glad it's over. Second stage is, holy crap, what was I thinking? And by the end of the third stage, you're thinking you should have just turned around and went back. It is rough for anybody. It's tough. There's a reason they call it Cardiac. And it's got the names Cardiac Hill, Cardiac Trail, Heart Attack Hill, all these different things. If your heart's not beating hard by the time you've gotten to the top of it, and if you went continuously all the way without stopping, you're dead, okay? Because you're not a real actual human being and alive, because that thing, no matter what kind of shape you're in, really will take you out. It's one of those ones where you just feel it in your legs as well. You'd almost deprive yourself of oxygen. But that was always one of my favorite ways to go in the mountains, because once you top Cardiac, and if you push it and you get through, and once you hit the crest, you're back in the mountains. Everything kind of suddenly changes as you drop in. You drop right down into Barks Canyon. But we're talking the cave trail. And like I said, I did the cave trail dozens and dozens of times. I've always wanted to do it again, definitely to take Trevor, but also with Greg, who I believe probably went in the long trek. I don't know if he ever guided it, but I'd want to get something on film of kind of the traditional and some of the stories that they told along the way. I do not know if there's anybody that led the long trek that would still be able to make it. Hopefully this year we will. I'm also dangling it out there, thinking at the rendezvous of do about a 7:30, 8 o'clock a.m. start time, and do it, go up Cardiac and go through and spend the 4 or 5 hours and try to do the cave trail. I think that would be awesome too, is to get a group of people go out there. And since we're around 95 years of the Dons, but it would be nice to take an established group and go through there. Be an interesting thing, but yeah, I remember those first trips and definitely going there. I don't think I ever heard anything other than Greg talking about Art Weber saying there was the retaining walls. There used to be little bits and pieces of pottery, but I think it's been so well visited. It's almost impossible to find anything. There was never any burials there. There's a number of sites, and you could tell that there was a group or a encampment there, and they probably used it more than once. But I've always been puzzled by the fact, while there are a few places that water would pool up, it would not have a regular water supply throughout the year since we're on the rock. And that always puzzled me because you would think there would be a water source like in Rogers Canyon, some distance, not a great distance. I can't imagine having to go all the way to a springs from there to bring water back up there. It would be a strategic place to sit, but literally someone could starve you out or dehydrate you out up there. So I don't know about a permanent living accommodation. I don't think Geronimo was ever there. But again, the resource books, the hiker's guides are awesome in finding this trail and other trails. And I just recently spoke to Jack Carlson. We talked a bit about his compilation and when he put these together and stuff. And I was thinking, yeah, it'd be kind of cool to take some of these hikes and do them specifically with one of the people that used to do these hikes or had knowledge of it, and then represent it and always promote Jack's books, which I believe he's going through another printing now. So there will be an updated printing coming out. Jack did tell me, and I think I can share this, they've sold approximately 40,000 copies of these books. I still think those are better references than the apps and stuff you use on your phone. Unfortunately, people, because they have the history, they tell the story, they give you something there. And I don't know of anybody that's ever had one of these books that really got turned around and got lost, because you can actually, the book will get you right back on. So really good stuff. But Geronimo's Cave, back in the early 70s, and that trail area, Peralta Trail, the Cave Trail, Fremont Saddle, you might run into a few people. I didn't run into many prospectors, many people back in there. It wasn't until you drop down into Needle Basin that you would start to run into things. At that point in time, Barks Canyon, Needle Canyon, you would. But there was definitely more of the touristy, common people just walking up to Fremont Saddle, the overlook, and then coming back out. And that was one of the popular things, obviously, and probably made Peralta Trailhead one of the most popular. I also remember the Forestry Service tents that they would set up through the winters. And you used to camp actually along Peralta Road throughout there as well. So it's kind of like changed so much. I look at it today and it's like, yeah, it wasn't quite this, there was the framework of some old buildings and stuff. But Cardiac Trail, go up, you get about to the top of Cardiac after the 3 stages, and there's a place that you see going north. It's usually got stuff around it. I don't think there's a trail. There's cairns now. The cairns take you through, but they miss certain key points that the Dons went through telling the Jacob Lost Dutchman story. And I want to do it because I don't know the full extent of how they told this story using that trail, since it would have little to nothing to do with the Dutchman, but it had to be something of a learning experience. And obviously we have no audio with any of the old film that we have. So I want to kind of do that, but I wanted to address it also as the fact is, like, I spent a lot of time up there, like with Ken and Jeff and Chris and Mike and a lot of these people that I spent with. You lose touch with people over the years, but I remember that for some reason, that initial trip, not only my first trip, but that initial trip up to Geronimo's Cave. And it was kind of a neat thing, is because I'd never been up and stayed somewhere like that. There was no scary stories associated with it all. It was just and I think today they call it the Cave Trail. I don't even know if the Cave Trail, I don't even know if Geronimo's Cave, it might be still on the newer topo maps. I don't even know if it's listed anymore, because it's not really a cave. It's just a shallow area that they could have used for some shelter. So there you go. That's the Geronimo Cave. Yeah, I've been going back in there now. Let's not even add up the years, but it's something like 45 years since my first trip probably up there. and I want to make a return to it and kind of do something on that this fall, kind of present that. And that's something Frank and I talked about, is doing something of not travel logs or hiking logs or what a lot of other people do, but kind of like go back in time and then have someone kind of talk about the early days, the establishment of this trail. And we're not going to get someone that was back in there first established it in the 30s. But as I research the Dons, I don't find a lot of information of how they established that trail and stuff. And a lot of their files and stuff were burned up in the 30s and 40s. And unfortunately, that probably took away some of why they established and why they told some of the stories they did. So we'll have pictures and we'll have some film and we'll do something like that in the fall. The Rendezvous, November 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Yes, we're starting to build up to that, so we'll be mentioning that. So 2023, November 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I got a few guest speakers. There's some other things I'm trying to arrange for the Rendezvous. And like I said, the Cardiac Hill to Geronimo's Cave trip is one thing I'm kind of putting in there. We've talked about it a few times. We've always hesitated because we sleep in or the day's too warm. I'm thinking, kind of put myself in a position of saying, talking to Greg Davis and see if I can find another guide and then put that together. Because I think, and if I get a lot of response of people coming in that say, yeah, we'd love to do that, would take our time. The Peralta Trail way coming out is just like a highway, freeway coming out. It's nice and easy, all downhill. But the going up part, we could take our time, stop, kind of Greg or someone could talk about some of those histories, which I do have a whole readout of, like, step-by-step process through it, but I think it's even better to have someone that had walked that trail and guided that trail to come out with us. So there you go, November 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the Rendezvous, History's Greatest Mysteries. Look forward to that coming up. That'll be very cool. One Monday night coming soon. I think it's at least a few more weeks away because I haven't seen it show up in the guides. Please check out the website, www.legendssuperstitionmountain.com. Always like Jack Carlson's book, Jackie San Felice, Jesse Feldman, Ron Feldman. Pick up everybody's books where you can find them. Support these guys on these endeavors. It's kind of a love for the mountains thing that they publish these books, and we put some stuff up in our bibliography on the website to draw some people in. So I hope you kind of enjoyed this. Kind of stuck it in there because it's been stuck in my craw a bit with the passing of my friend Ken. And it's kind of, I want to kind of purge and get that out of my system. So, yeah, and it will be nice when I revisit and kind of relive some of the memories again of all those friends, because there was many people I made that trip with over the years. And it will be kind of nice to step back into it now that I'm old and I'm nostalgic. Finally in my life, I'm nostalgic about these things, not about just blowing open new frontiers. I'm kind of a little nostalgic. And the passing of old friends is kind of like, it's part of life, but it's a bit sad as it goes along. So there you go. Thank you for joining us. Always welcome to kind of leave comments and whatnot, and any suggestions you have for the Rendezvous and things coming up and further. And always remember, I'm Wayne Tuttle, you're not, and this was Chasing Legends.